Hey there, everybody. It's your good pal Dustin back with another episode of Turn It Around. As always, before we get started, I hope everybody had a wonderful and blessed Sunday. I hope you got to spend time with God in whatever way that looks like for you, whether it's going to church, reading your Bible, singing along to Christian music, or taking in YouTube or TikTok Christian content. Whatever way you spend time with God on Sunday, I hope you got to do it, and I hope you get to do it throughout the week, and I hope you have a wonderful and blessed week ahead. Ooh, got tongue-tied there for a second. Anywho, we are on episode 122, and we are continuing our study of the story of Esther. We are on day 3 of the study, which is titled No Compromise. And as I have been splitting it up into 2, it's mostly because I read the entire chapter for the day, more than the fact that there's how many questions there are at the end. It's more just having read the chapter that I figure it's just easier to split it into 2 parts. So, anywho. But to get started with today, we're going to do a little recap. So, we found out in the last 2 chapters, got a little bit of, we'll just say, setting the scene. Because all of this, the stuff with Vashti happened before Xerxes went and attempted to conquer the Greeks. He had ousted Vashti as his queen. She was no longer queen. She was gone. She was just thrown out on her butt, out in the gutter. And then Xerxes went off to conquer the Greeks. Of course, we know that did not happen. He was defeated, partly because of being stalled and held up for so long by the Spartans. Was it the Battle of Thermopylae, or is that another one? I can't remember. One of these days I'm going to look that up, and just so I can tell you guys if this is talked about again. Anywho, Xerxes realized when he came back, he had cut off the one person who would have wanted to comfort him, his wife, his queen, his what was supposed to be love. And he likely sank into depression. Now, I can understand that. I too suffer from depression. It's not fun when you get pulled down into that darkness of depression. You know, a lot of the days you can tread water, as they say, but every once in a while the darkness of depression just comes up over your head and tries to drown you. So I know that feeling. But knowing Xerxes' lustful nature, his servants, they were like, "Ooh, we got an idea. We got an idea how to pick our king back up, how to get him out of this depression. Because he is such a horn dog, we will bring him all the best virgins of the land." We found out that was between 400 and 1450. So that's kind of debated, but around there. A lot of women is the point. And the one he enjoyed the most would replace Vashti as queen. Of course, Xerxes, being a horn dog, it's like, okay, that sounds good. This should perk me up. This should get me back on the horse. Quickly accepted their suggestion, and the gathering of these young women began. Now, it just so happened that Mordecai, one of the Jewish captives who had made his way into the service for the king, had a beautiful young cousin named Esther. Actually, her Jewish name would have been Hadassah. She changed her name so that Esther is her Persian name. So Esther was also taken. But those selecting her didn't know her heritage. That is the whole reason they changed her name to Esther, so that her heritage would be kept secret. So through this turn of events, Mordecai and Esther were placed into position to fulfill the purposes God had for them. A preparation period was set for these women to beautify them, but Esther brought all the beauty she would need with her. Not only was she physically attractive, whatever that looked like back then. You know, measures of attractiveness change over time, so whatever that looked like back then. I'm just gonna go with the classic, wah, wah, wah. You know that old cartoon one. You know what I'm talking about. Anywho, but her relationship with God shone forth beautifully, leading her to find favor in the sight of all. Thanks to God's grace shining through Esther, she was given favor. And ultimately, Xerxes picked her for his queen. So we know Esther 2 closed in a kind of unusual way. Mordecai overhearing a plot to assassinate Xerxes, who Mordecai reported this to Esther, and she reported it to the king. They investigated. It was discovered to be true. The plotters were put to death. They were hung up in the village square, so to speak. But this obscure incident, because it probably wasn't widely publicized, just because it was kind of solved internally, but it will play an important role in a future study at a pivotal point in the story. Today we'll read of the great courage of Mordecai to stand against wrong and not compromise his faith despite tremendous pressure to do so. The repercussions of this stand would be significant, and clear action was required to counter it. So let's turn to chapter 3 and see what happened and what we can learn from it. Sorry, I think allergies are getting to me today. I don't know. So, Esther 3. After these events, King Xerxes honored Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than that of all other nobles. All the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down and paid honor to Haman, for the king had commanded this concerning him, but Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor. Then the royal officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why do you disobey the king's command?" Day after day they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. Therefore they told Haman about it to see whether Mordecai's behavior would be tolerated, for he had told them he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor, he was enraged. Big surprise, I know. Yet having learned who Mordecai's people were, he scorned the idea of killing only Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all of Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. In the 12th year of King Xerxes, in the first month, the month of Nisan, the pur, that is, the lot, was cast in the presence of Haman to select a day and month. And the lot fell on the 12th month, the month of Adar. Then Haman said to King Xerxes, "There is a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom, who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury." So the king took his signet ring from his finger, gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. "Keep the money," the king said to Haman, "and do with the people as you please." Then on the 13th day of the first month, the royal secretaries were summoned. They wrote out in the script of each province and in the language of each people all Haman's orders to the king's satraps, the governors of the various provinces, and the nobles of the various peoples. These were written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his own ring. Dispatches were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jews, young and old, women and children, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. Copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality so they would be ready for that day. The couriers went out, spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the citadel of Susa. The king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa was bewildered. So, again, sorry, I think allergies getting to me. So, that's a lot. You know, we go from Mordecai basically saving the king, and now he's in trouble because he simply wouldn't bow down to this man, Haman. Yeah, it seems rather extreme. Like, he's basically, because of his actions, he's basically sentenced the Jewish people to destruction. I couldn't understand why the city of Susa would be bewildered, because that seems a little extreme. Like, it was just the one guy. Now, granted, not saying this, but if it was just the one guy, why not just deal with him? Why destroy his entire people? Well, there is a reason why Haman would want to do that. And that comes, I'll explain. So, but first, was Mordecai honored for helping stop the assassination? Short answer, no. It's almost like the king was like, thank Mordecai, we should honor him, and then it just flew from his head. Like that quick. Have you ever thought about something or you thought you need to do something and you're gonna do it like really quick, but maybe you're watching TV, reading a book or something. Anyway, it's not that long after you thought about it, and then all of a sudden you just, what was I gonna do again? And you forget. It's happened to me, so I can't really say, I blame Xerxes for that bit. But that doesn't always stay the same. Eventually, you do remember what that thing you were going to do was. Sometimes it just takes a pretty big push. But we'll get to that in future chapters. But instead of honoring Mordecai, Xerxes honored this Haman, the Agagite. Now you're probably like, what's an Agagite? Well, the Agagites, it's not a technical people. It's possibly a term used to refer to descendants of King Agagite, of the Amalekites. So in all actuality, if you wanted to give him like a heritage, if he is a descendant of Agag, he would be an Amalekite. But the Amalekites were, I believe, wiped out by the Jews. Amalekites, Israel's ancient foe. So basically, Haman had a axe to grind with the Jews. As soon as he found out who Mordecai was, he decided this would be the perfect opportunity to get his revenge for for his ancestor King Agag and his fallen people, the Amalekites, and destroying the Jews. Though it could also be a term just to refer to an anti-Semite in general. So I guess in a way you could call him the ancient parallel to a certain German leader in World War II. I don't know if his name is a flag for YouTube, so that's why I don't say it, but y'all know who I'm talking about. I'm sure it's not. I think I've seen it used in other videos, but I just don't want to deal with that headache just in case. But you all know who I'm talking about. So basically, we've got a World War II situation on our hands, but just condensed into this one particular country, area, etc. So not as large of scale as World War II was, but would be large scale in reference to the Jewish people. But we will get to all of that next week when we answer the rest of the questions. Like I said, I'm splitting it up into two, mainly because I'm reading an entire chapter for the first video. Just figure it's better to keep it, around 20-25 minutes or so. So we'll get to the rest of the questions next week. But think about the courage Mordecai would have had to not pay homage to Haman. Mordecai, in his head, probably thought it will just be me that, suffers the consequences. But even then, imagine the courage it took for him to do that, knowing that he could at best be imprisoned and at worst executed for it. So think on that through the week. Think of the courage it takes to stand up for your faith, stand up for God, and stand up for what you believe in. As always, thank you for being here. I thank you for your time, your likes, your subscriptions, the comments when I get them. I always smile when I see a comment. It makes my day when I see one. And I cannot thank you enough for giving me your time. And as always, my friends, remember that I love you, God loves you, and please remember to love yourselves and those around you. Till next week, my friends. Bye.